with two totally different dynamics. One of those with an incident that was pretty much cut and dry, and a mayor that was already embattled, who was watching anarchy envelop her city, and of course, destructive protests. Minneapolis, again, very destructive protests, and a mayor that was struggling to get in front of the situation. The problem here is not that there's a holdout, and I can say this much just from what I've been able to find out. What you have here is, and I'll say it publicly, I'm pretty sure it's no secret, you have a broken system with regards to the municipality that's governing you. Your problems are not within the police force. They are, because the institution itself is arid in its own construction. But when you have problems within the mayor's office, when you have problems within the jurisdictional prudence of the attorney general and what they can and make folks do, and when they get stuff or when they have get stuff, what happens? What you have is a broken pipeline. It's not that they're not doing anything. The pipeline's broken. As a matter of fact, you have corruption. I'm going to say this too, and I told them I would say this. This is nothing new. When you have this level of corruption, when you have this level of malfeasance, when you have this level of disdain, and you have this atmosphere of playing politics, then what you end up with is a broken system that when something as critical as the death of Ms. Taylor comes along, the system cannot function as smoothly as it should. It is infected. It is broken, and you have individuals, some of them who probably will need to leave office when all of this comes out. So the reason that you're not holding out, that's a misperception. That's one of the reasons we came here, is because we too thought, well, why are they just not doing anything? But once you get behind closed doors, it's akin to the Katrina situation, when we found out that the person who had been appointed the director of FEMA was inept at the job and never should have had it to start with, so he could not respond effectively for all those poor people down in New Orleans. Here, you're seeing the effects, which are the symptoms of a much bigger problem, and that problem sits in your mayor's office.
Grandmaster Jay, I want to thank you for being on the call with us and just enlightening us and inspiring us on many things. I was very inspired by your conversation yesterday, but I know yesterday, one of the things that you did mention was that before you all come into a city, you all assess a city and you study a city and you study the dynamics of that city. In your opinion, and you studying Louisville, Kentucky in specific, what do you think our immediate need is right now as far as organizing?
You've got two major challenges, and they're actually tied together. The restructuring of the municipal government needs to happen. It needs to be populated by folks who are actually from the community, who don't have a financial vested interest in any type of side deals, which then spin off into such things as gentrification. The community that is being affected the most, but not the only community, which is the 24% of this population, which is African-American, which is bearing the brunt of this particular action, needs to stabilize and solidify not only its own political base, but the consolidation of its resources, and then the agreement of a platform that represents a consensus of all of the people that you will stand behind, and you will not back any political move, any political candidate, or any political initiative unless it includes the elements of that particular agreed upon a platform. Those would be the first things that would stop the process that you have right now of the gentrification, which is being driven and enhanced by political corruption. Again, that's the core of your problem. Clean out your city council, clean out your mayor's office, clean out some of your judgeships, clean it out. And once you do that, replace it with the actual folks who want to make change. If you can't find those folks, then you're going to find yourself stuck in an endless cycle where you're going to be stuck in a time bubble. And until you break that cycle, you will not be able to address the more pressing needs, the gentrification, the redistribution of the financial wealth within those neighborhoods, the consolidation of the wealth by those communities, and the right to invest in their own neighborhoods, or the requirement that anyone that's opening a business in certain neighborhoods within your city be required to donate a portion of their earnings into those communities, so they can begin to reconstruct some of the things that are missing, some of the programs for the young, some of the things that will get folks involved in some form of education, some of those things that will also, as I said before, will begin to build the foundation for what we call community policing. Once community policing is in place, the over-policing, and that particular model you heard me talk about last night, which is reactive as opposed to proactive policing, can then begin to take root and begin to grow. I think that's the nominal approach at a minimum of what you need to do from what I've been able to study about the dynamics of Louisville.
Thank you. Anyone else, or can I jump back in?
Nah, I got a question.
Okay.
What is your goal after the formation for the city of Louisville? My name is Sean Mucker, with Urban Voices Radio.
Sean, can you repeat the last part of your question?
I said, what is your goal after this formation? Are you coming back to Louisville, or is it just a one-time thing?
As a matter of fact, we have established a relationship with several of the community organizations here in Louisville. As I said before, the process of working on developing your model for community policing is something that will take time. And we have already agreed that based on some of those subsequent conversations that will happen after this event, that we would be coming back, not in these great numbers, but in small contingencies to quote unquote train the trainer, and also offer some security along the way until you're able to stand on your own feet. This is not an occupation. This is a cooperation. And we've already started that. LeBron Lachey could probably speak a little bit more intelligently about the agencies involved. This was a request that was brought to us since we were going to be here, and they've seen some of the examples of what we've done in some other cities. This is not a one-in. We're not just coming in to put on a show and then grandstand and then leave you to your own devices. No, we want to become integrally involved in this particular process as we look to become involved in the process in other cities.
And to kind of reiterate what he's saying, initially when I got in touch with him, it was to help us out with our city, because we were working on some plans behind the scenes with the police department initially. And when he got in touch with me, he kind of let me, continue working what I was working, and through that, we started the dialogue. And so we do have pretty much all the major city agencies, the mayor's office, police, everybody has, is willing to give full support. And then Grandmaster Jay has, said that, he has no problem leaving folks here, coming back himself to help us in our efforts, to better our community. And what really has Louisville messed up is the cohesiveness of everybody working together. Everybody's trying to do their own thing. So through this effort, we're gonna get people that can come together and work together and really start some positive change in our community. And this brother right here is here to say that he has our back in whatever we want to do, and that he's also a security for him, for whatever we need, and that's a blessing. So I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you much.
This is Andre Williams with Power 106 Radio here in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for taking all of our questions and calls. So there are quite a few people who are still getting familiarized with the organization. They've heard the NFAC and they've seen a few things that you all have done in the country, but there's still a few people who see this as just a show of power, more so in the aspect of intimidation. So what do you say to those people who say that this is just a way of flexing your muscle and nothing is actually getting accomplished, and they don't understand what the actual reasoning behind these things are?
Well, what I would say to them is, first of all, you don't ask those questions when other militia groups flex their muscle. You don't ask these, you don't ask for a direction. You don't raise these questions with other groups. So why would you raise them with us? That is your answer. We don't have to answer those questions. This is not a flex of muscle. It's an exercise of our constitutional rights, just like everybody else. You see, it's okay when we have all these other groups walking around, showing up at protests, dressed like police with twisty ties where they could possibly kidnap people, and everyone thinks it's okay. But the moment that Black people organize themselves and pick up weapons, everybody wants to know what's it all about and what have you accomplished. You want to hold a litmus test to us, whereas you give everybody else a pass. I am insulted by people who ask questions like that, because before you come and ask us that question, go ask the other groups, and whatever answers they give you, bring those back to us, and then we'll answer that question.
That's right.
And to kind of back him up on that, Andre, for real, Grandmaster Jay, man, he didn't even have to be here. I mean, take away the guns, put on some suit coats, and we have the same march that's been going on for years. The brother doesn't even have to come into the city, but what he's showing is that we do have some type of backbone to move the agendas that we need to move forward. If not, we'll be in the same space.
Now, let me add something to that. When folks say we haven't done anything, they should count their blessings, because the idea is not to do anything. It is to send a strong message that whatever position our community decides to adopt, We're there to enforce it, just like every other military and militia does on the planet. So unless you have someone who can have the hard conversations and sit down and have a meaningful dialogue with whatever opposing force there is or whatever position that we're going back and forth on, without that linchpin, then you have chaos. The purpose of the NFAC is the backbone of the discussions that we need to have that we have not been able to have effectively for the last 60 years.
Absolutely.
Grandmaster Jay, I'd like to ask you, as far as your organization, how do you all effectively identify effective leadership within your organization? Is that something that you can share with us?
From the 50,000 foot level, some of the requirements to join the actual organization itself requires some of those qualities already be exhibited by your past experience. That's one of the reasons why you hear me always say we're ex-military. Doesn't mean that we're ex-fighters. It means that some of us are ex-leaders. Some of us are ex-strategists. Some of us are ex a few things. We bring those skills to the table. You've already been proven by all of the systems that the government uses to measure leadership. And now we have those qualities to mold into our particular methodology of leadership. We do not believe in a follow the leader model. We believe in a train the leader model. So that way, if I'm gone tomorrow, there's someone who can sit in this chair that has already been groomed to take my place, and it rolls on down the line, train the trainer. So we identified that through several means, not only through your past behavior, but also we have what we would call behavioral psychologists on board, and we study people. We're constantly studying each other. Once you become a member of the NFAC, you're just not in. Just like with any other organization, we're constantly looking at your background, your affiliations. We want to make sure that you don't become a weak link in the chain that can be exploited. We don't want to fall victim to the same methodologies of COINTELPRO and Operation Black Messiah. So leadership is something that we look at very intrinsically. But at the same time, we sit back and realize that some people, we have to develop the potential in them to become what we need them to be. So it's a process. But at the same time, it is identified in the recruiting process. It's also identified in the vetting process. And then most importantly, it's identified out in the field.
Thank you.
Grandmaster, thank you. How do you choose what cities that you go into?
You know, that's a good question. We don't choose, you do.
Okay.
We let the temperature of the nation, once it rises to a certain level, as we said before, I've explained this in several other forums, there are 4 levels of resistance, of public resistance. And they are, the first level is when people get upset and they go out in the street and they're not organized, they're throwing rocks, they're breaking windows, they're turning over cars, they're protesting. And the next group, level 2, is when the actual marches and stuff start. So the marches start because you're now organized, you're trying to make an emphasis, you're hoping to get the attention of the folks. They're used to that. Level 3 is when the looters show up. The looters really have nothing to do with the issue. They just see an opportunity to loot stuff. Most people are suffering from what we call quarantine poverty. We've got the highest number of job loss since the Depression, no matter what they're lying to you about. The world has been on pause. A lot of folks don't have a stimulus check anymore. So that's when looting starts, when folks have nothing to do with the issue, but hey, let's go out and let's just take some stuff. And when normally that's where it all dies down, after the looting starts and they call in the National Guard and everyone goes back to sleep. But there's another level that they've never breached, and that is an organized response from responsible citizens, folks that actually are your law-abiding citizens, that are your responsible gun owners, that are your retirees, they're your vets, these type folks. When they get pissed off and it reaches level 4, now you've got a new animal, and that never ever happened. So they were not prepared for it when they saw it. So, you know, when we look at the temperature around the country of certain incidents, we follow the pattern. And what was interesting to us was, and I'll use Louisville as an example. No, I'll back up. I'll use Brunswick as an example. When we came out of the quarantine and the story of Ahmaud Arbery began to seep out, you know, of course, we saw it like everybody else. And of course, we just wanted to see how it would play out. As it began to play out and we began to identify that there was something really wrong here and that this was not going to be handled appropriately, and it looked like it might have been swept away, it begins to move up the thermometer. And then as more and more people became aware of it and the answers were not coming, it moved further up the thermometer. And eventually it was beyond something that protesting would have fixed. It was something where we began to see a systemic of racism that was being perpetuated and had cost this young man his life. So that's when it was time for them to see level 4. If you notice, we never show up in any city until after you've had your protests, after you've had your looters, after you've had the usual, as I call the usual suspects who come through and try to sing and hold hands their way out of it. And then of course the camera people come, the people who jump in front of cameras. We wait till all that's over. The problem is still here. So it's time to ask those questions in a much more stringent manner. Louisville rose to the top very rapidly when we began to look at, after everything that happened with George Floyd and all the concern behind Ahmaud Arbery and all the other incidents that were going on, including the spate of lynchings that were going on. The temperature was rising in the country to the point where what was being buried here was getting ignored, began to really concern us. And anyone who's been following me on social media knows that I started talking about Breonna Taylor over and over again right after things began to die down from the George Floyd situation. And it seemed like no one was talking about it anymore. I mean, you guys were talking about it here in your city, but mainstream media was kind of letting it fade away. And the last thing we heard was that an officer got fired and now he's trying to get his job back. That was all the information that was being put out to the world. When you see something like that, now it becomes a concern because everyone's asking everyone else and no one has an answer. And there's no answer coming. Now, all of a sudden, you start to see a heightened level of awareness where now folks are banging on doors and they're demanding and still no answers. Once it gets to that point where it looks like the government is non-responsive to the will of the people, the Constitution says the form of a militia to address the grievances of the people. I didn't write it, they wrote it. We just abide by it. So that's our next destination, because when it looks like the government is being indifferent to the people have the right to form themselves and arm themselves to ask those questions. And that's how we choose a particular city. And right now, this is at the top of the meter. It's been how many days? 100 days since this young lady was killed, and we still don't have anyone inside of the system. We still have folks talking about looking at investigations and this, that, and the third. So that's so far off the reservation. I'm sorry to use that term. I don't want me to offend anyone, but it's so far off the reservation that it requires more than just a march. It requires someone to sit at the table and explain to us what is going on. No matter how bad it sounds, I'd rather know what's going on than for you to have us to fill in the blanks. Because when we fill in the blanks, we always go to the worst case scenario that you just don't care. Why? Well, look at the history of this country when it comes to the judicial system, the police force, and Black people. So in case you've been living under a rock, you don't understand that we're sensitized to that. So we don't want those particular things to continue. So that is how we choose our next location, unless the mission is different. Stone Mountain was a different type of mission. Stone Mountain was the answer to a threat. They want you to think that it was about a statue. We didn't care about the statue. What happened was a threat was made against all Black people on July 4th, all across the nation. So we decided to go to the one place where we know they gather every year. And the media ignored that story. They ignored the fact that they evacuated the park and got those people out of there. They ignored the fact that they closed the park so no one could come in while we were in there. And they also realized they were outgunned and outmanned, so they worked along with us. We chose that because we realized that in order to get the message out, we needed to go to the heart of the Ku Klux Klan and let them know. And no one was there for all of their threatening. So this is a different type of mission. This is a fact-finding mission. This is a political mission. This is a community support mission. So it's determined by your circumstances and what our appropriate response should be.
Grandmaster Jay, I have a question for one of our viewers, if you don't mind. They would like to know that if on Saturday, if someone on the opposing side is to come against you all, will you all let the LMPD step in first, or will you all handle it first? How does that dynamic work?
We have been working along with the Special Operations Division of the LMPD, as well as along with the state police, as well as along with a few other entities that I shall not name, some at the federal level, that have, we've come to an agreement that they will be in a first response position should anyone attempt to aggress us. If they get past them, we will defend ourselves.
Thank you.
Grandmaster Jay, a lot of people are wondering, what is some of the after effect that you've seen from your prior mobilizations? You talk about going into towns and providing them with support. Can you speak to some of the good things that have happened after you visited the city?
Sure. It's interesting. It's not just the city, because these effects are felt around the world, and you can see it yourself. The imagery of citizens organizing and arming themselves to confront these particular situations is inspiring to a lot of these folks. What we've seen is we've gone back, and now people are forming their own neighborhood patrols. People are learning about guns. People are educating themselves on judicial process. We've seen this happen. We've gone back to some places, and now we see a better relationship actually between law enforcement and the people, because there's this set consensus that if things go off the rails, there's somebody we can call to deal with you. So that's another thing. And of course, the establishment of chapters. We've gone to some cities where they form their own chapters. And when we come, they present themselves to us to be sworn in or to be accepted or to be whatever it is to become a part of our organization. We've seen that. We've also seen a renewed conversation between some of the forces that create these situations, because they can now see that without that conversation, things can degenerate into anarchy, like what happened in Atlanta. When we visited some of those places, they were happy to see us. They wanted guidance, and they said, we'll take your lead and you can show us how to do this. But later on that night, there was an incident and a child was killed. But the response was different. The response was, let's find this person, and the neighborhood pulled together. There was not the norm. We're seeing more unity. We're seeing more inspiration. We're seeing a lot of children. This is interesting. We're seeing a lot of young folks that now say, listen, I'm inspired. I have a role model now. I actually believe that we can help ourselves. So that's what I'm seeing across the board at the very high level. At the very low level, I've also seen a willingness by law enforcement to be willing to relinquish some of their duties in place of a community program that is appropriately trained, that can enforce some of their own laws upon their own citizens. We've seen the beginnings of those. But most importantly, there's also been the recognition that there is this other element within society that we can all be a part of, that we have some control and some say-so in, that we have some power over ourselves. Those have been the benefits that I've seen.
Okay, I got a question for you again, sir. Now we see what you're doing on a local, state level. Are you making any changes towards on a federal level?
It's interesting you mentioned that. Back in 2015, I wrote a 10-step reform program for police jurisdictional programs and also at the federal level for the handling of police-involved shootings. I presented this to our president at the time, who was Barack Obama. If you all remember when we had the Emanuel 9 killings in Charleston, the president came down to deliver the eulogy for Senator Pinckney. And of course, I was there also. And then he had a chance to take a look at that. He actually read pieces of it on the lawn of the White House with the Chinese premier. And then we didn't hear anything else about it. So that plan still exists. Some of this, because of the current administration, I do not believe that the atmosphere exists to have the relevant conversations that would be conducive and constructive for us at this time. I do believe that it would fall on the next administration. So at the federal level, those conversations are at a standstill, even though they're very much aware of who we are and a few other entities in the country that want to have those conversations. On a national level, it would be remiss of me not to say that those departments that like the FBI and Department of Justice and a few other three-letter agencies are engaging us. Just from an acknowledgement that we know who you are. We know that you have international affiliations now, because we do have international alliances now, and that we would hope that before you decide to move into any type of a radical direction, that you would have a conversation with us. Well, that's fine, but as far as the restructuring or the influencing of laws, changing some of the laws that need to be changed on the books, we haven't gotten into the lobbying business yet, like the NRA and those folks. We stay away from that because our primary goal is the protection of the Black community and the policing of the Black community, and eventually the defense of any Black ethno nation that may come out of some other actions that we can talk about at another time.
Okay. Mr. J, this is Brad Harrison, Urban Voices Radio again. There have been reports from the FBI dating back, I know, well over 12 years now. The FBI has credible intel that white supremacist groups have infiltrated law enforcement across the country. Now, years ago, we would raise the talking points that some of these white supremacist groups, as we would call them, are race soldiers. When you have white supremacists that have infiltrated law enforcement, they can actively kill a black person under the guise of, I thought his cell phone was a gun, or I saw him reaching for something, or I feared for my life. Do you feel that law enforcement agencies across the country need to have a policy to better vet people that are entering law enforcement?
Well, I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you brought it up, here we go. The truth of the matter is that report came out in 2006. And when that report came out, it not only said that they would be infiltrating law enforcement, but it also said they would be infiltrating the military. I was military at that time, and I can tell you that they were spot on. The problem with that is that when these folks begin to infiltrate these agencies, they don't pop out the other side right away. You begin to see a manifestation of them once they've taken root and their numbers have increased enough, and the culture has become predominant. The problem within the policing models of today is the same problem that we have within the military. Everybody looks good on paper, but you can be a completely incompetent racist race soldier, as you call them, and blunder from one department to the other, because as long as you're not fired and you can leave and get a good recommendation, you'll get a job in another police department. What we found out from some of our past investigations into this issue is that upon examining the personnel files of some of those law enforcement officers, we found out that they failed every task in the training, but still got a rating of excellent, as if to get bodies into uniforms. If that becomes public, then yes, now everybody knows that if you want to kill black folks, if you want to kill Latinos, if you want to kill any other race, then the job doesn't pay that well, but the benefit is you get to continue our agenda, which is the extermination of melanated people, which is what a lot of supremacists will tell you. At the end of the day, yes, it has happened. Yes, that is why you're seeing a lot of police officers who would rather quit the job than change their cultural mindset. That is why you see so many increase in all the police-involved shootings and the standard excuses, because the infection did not stop with law enforcement. It did not stop with the military. It has infected, as we saw in the Ahmaud Arbery case, it has infected the judgeship. It has infected the prosecutor's office. It has infected the entire prison, the pipeline to prison system that exists. So when you find someone that's let's say a race soldier, as you call him, in the police force, he's comfortable because there's also a race soldier sitting in the prosecutor's office. There's a race soldier sitting behind the judge's bench. There's race soldiers running the penitentiary. As a matter of fact, there are even race soldiers that are masquerading as criminals to make sure that they can keep getting us into the system. So it's become systemic across the board.
Okay, the second part of that question is, you are an armed militia. In addition to police officers and law enforcement being racist, I think the mentality across America is the same as well. For example, white people are able to march on a courthouse in Michigan armed, and America totes its right to the Second Amendment. White folks are able to carry guns in Charlottesville. There are several white militia groups, which I will leave unnamed, that carry guns on a regular basis, and America as a whole sees them as protecting their Second Amendment rights. As soon as black people pick up a gun, we're viewed as a criminal group. We're looked at as troublemakers, and not just from the white community. Some of our own community even view us that way. How would you address that?
That's a good question. Let me unpack that, and I'm glad you asked that. First of all, we have to understand that when you say America, that is a political term that we need to put in the parking lot in order for us to deal with the true nature of your question. When the white people, okay, who are the predominant demographic in this country, who built this country on the backs of slaves, who stole this land from the rape, robbery, and genocide of the indigenous, who set up the monetary system after they stole everybody's gold in the 30s, and then who also tend to play victim to the circumstances they created, have also socialized everyone, including those of us who are descendants of the slave trade, of Reconstruction, of Jim Crow, and so forth, have socialized us the same way that if you've ever read the book Propaganda, it talks about how you mold the mental perception of an entire people. This is the same book that was handed to Adolf Hitler that he used to convince everyone that Jews were the cause of all of their problems and thus the Holocaust. Well, that same book is the book that's used to tell you that cigarette smoking was sexy and that fluoride was good for your teeth. Once you socialize a people and then it's handed down from generation to generation, it becomes ingrained in their psyche. In his book, Brainwash, Tom Burrell talks about why the Black person does some of the things that they do today because they've been socialized all the way back from slavery. So when you start thinking of Black people and guns, the same program that was used to demify Jews is being used to demify Black people. So whenever you see the media pushing stories about Black crime or talking about Black on Black crime when there's other types of crime that happens in every demographic, as if to emphasize that we're criminals. When you talk about the crime, when you put 3 stories on and 3 of them about Black people breaking the law, rape, robbery, stealing, whatever you want to call it, you're creating a mentality that reinforces an individual's thoughts about how they see themselves. I've spoken on this before. Everyone on this call has high personal esteem, but a lot of Black people have low racial esteem. Why? Esteem is based on who you are, where you came from, your culture, what your accomplishments are. We've been socialized to believe we've done nothing, so people think that they've done nothing. So people begin to think that they're these thugs and these criminals, so they become afraid of the very tools that we use to build this country, which is guns. So of course, when white people see other white people exercising their constitutional rights, they don't have a problem with that. But the minute that they see Black people pick up guns, they say, hey, wait a minute. How did they wake up out of the matrix? They're supposed to be afraid of guns. They're supposed to think that if I pick up a gun, I must be doing something wrong. That is a mental brainwash. When the truth of the matter is there is an inferiority complex and I'm going to pay your ass back mentality that dominates that particular society. It's not as if we're coming to get you, but the moment we arm ourselves, you know for a fact that you're riding around in a car that you stole from somebody. And even though you didn't do the stealing, you still have the keys. And we're the ones that the car belongs to, at least partially. And so whenever we arm ourselves, all of a sudden, here it comes back. Could this be it? Are these folks finally going to try to extract the revenge for the 246 years of the enslavement of our people, and then the subsequent destruction of our infrastructure during Reconstruction, and then the subsequent discrimination during Jim Crow, and then the injection, so many things that have been done to us. Of course they get scared when we pick up a weapon. It's when we get organized that they become terrified. So it's to stop us from getting to that level. Remember what J. Edgar Hoover said, America's worst nightmare is Black unity. So when we arm ourselves, that's one thing. So let's stop them from doing that. Let's make sure they think that's a bad idea. But when they start to get organized, well, now we can't stop them. We have to figure out a way to deal with them. So the way that you see, what you're seeing is the mental socialization. Those mental chains are still in place.
I just want to say, I'm Summer Dickerson, a community leader here in Louisville. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for everything that you've said, because I think a lot of people have been, questioning and wondering like what's going on. And I'm like, what is wrong with them coming down and being organized? I was like, that's what you guys are, you're so scared because they're organized. Like that's what kings do. They organize. So I just, want to say that I think everything that you said and to take the time out to even talk to us, I appreciate you. And I just want to say that I see you and thank you.
Thank you.
Or Grandmaster Jay, how are you, sir?
I'm still Black. Won't wash off.
Absolutely. So my name is D. Muldrow. I'm CEO of Urban Connect Media Group here in Louisville. Also president of Theta Omega grad chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated here. Okay. And so as a community leader and one of those individuals who's been in several meetings with the mayor, one thing I know for sure, there is a lot of deflection going on in terms of responsibility, right, on what I can and what I can't do. So my question to you is, knowing what you know about the city now, studying the city, meeting with these people from the Attorney General on down, where do you think the pressure should be applied the most? Because I think that's the issue now with where do we apply the pressure to? Should it be to the Attorney General, or should it be to the mayor's office, or should it be to LMPD? So just like, for instance, the mayor went around saying, you know, for months that he didn't have to fire or the power to fire those cops. But then 3 months later, he happened to fire one of them just after more allegations came up regarding sexual assault. So if you had the same power then, you all had the same power months ago, because the law, that contract didn't change. So then it's like, okay, so who do we apply the most pressure to in this situation? Because it's coming from different angles.
Based on what I've been made privy to this entire situation, you apply pressure in all three places. And the reason being is because, as I said before, it's the politics that are choking the system, that has choked the pipeline, so that the flow of information has been almost adversarial. These folks are not working together. There are a lot of personal differences. There are a lot of political differences, which has made it almost impossible for them to get this done. And then, of course, there has been some outright lying. I'll say that here because I'm not stupid. Well, you lied about it. You really didn't have this. But I would say that at this point, the pressure now should fall on the office of the Attorney General, because the Attorney General has the case now. And when I say that, let me say that again, has the whole case now, okay? If I can stress that for all your listeners, they didn't have the whole case, and they were being beat up for something they didn't have the whole case from. And now that they do have the whole case, they need to be given a minimal amount of time to process it and make a decision right away. But in the meantime, you have to still go back and put pressure on the mayor's office, because the mayor's office is one of the key culprits in all of this. And to let them slide just because they handed over all the documents finally over to the AG, well, now we got to look at, what do we need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? We want accountability. If accountability is not going to happen, then you need to step down, or you all need to have some type of an emergency election, or something needs to be done, because the reason that we're at the state that we're at right now is because of what's broken in that office. I'm not taking anything from the mayor and all the good things he may have done for the city, but in the issue of Breonna Taylor, the ball was dropped horribly and kicked across the street and rolled around the corner. Nobody knew where it was for a while. Now that we've got it back, rinsed it off and handed it over to the Attorney General, let's just see how fast, since he's promised that he will work expeditiously as soon as he gets it. And now he's had it now for about a week. Let's see what happens. You did hear me correctly. He's only had it for about a week, the whole case. So because of that, we now have to go back and look at the police department. We need to fix some things in here. There are certain structures that exist, the relationship between who can authorize what without anyone else having to know about it. That needs to be fixed. There should never be the ability to create any type of an entity, especially in law enforcement, that only one person within the government knows about, which means they're only answerable to that one person, and then that one person can decide, I don't want to talk about it. That is not the America that I know. That sounds like something else that I won't name on this call. So pressure needs to be applied in all three areas. At the same time, pressure also needs to be applied to all of those agencies that sit in this community and collect dollars from agencies and from donors who claim that this is what they're working toward, but they're just sitting back watching the show. The pressure that the NFAC is bringing could have been brought by someone else here. It did not take 5,000 of us coming into your city with guns to emphasize the point. It could have been done here. So there's enough pressure to go around.
Indeed. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Grandmaster Jay, for coming on here. Again, for those viewers who just joined, this call was put together for Louisville Black media, people who have been on the front line. I wanted you guys, friends of Nicole, I wanted you guys to get this information first. So please share to your media outlets. If you wasn't available on all of the call today, go back and watch it again. He took care of all the questions that people have, all the questions that media has. And so there you have it, folks. There you have it right there. You have all the questions. He will be coming on Saturday. If you didn't get the main points, please correct me if I'm wrong. If you want to join them, which you cannot join the formation on Saturday. If you bring your guns down there on Saturday, that you're basically on your own. Is that correct? I want to make sure. Can we get Grandmaster? I'm gonna get it from you. 3 main points about Saturday to inform the people, because I don't want to get it wrong. Just 3 main things that people do. I don't want to get it wrong.
Such a good job. I was just sitting there going along for the ride, but okay. But I'll take it from here. Okay, very good. And I wanted to save this for the end. And this is what LeBron brought up. We want to encourage people who want to be a part of this, because this will be historic. That if you want to carry your weapons with us, if you want to dress in the black as we are, that you're more than welcome. But our folks will be readily identifiable by several identifications that you will not have, so we know who our folks are. We're not telling anyone not to come out and support us and march behind us or whatever they want to do. The idea is actually to have the police escort, and then of course the formation, and then there's another police escort, and then there's you folks doing what you're doing, and then there's another police escort, the whole 9 yards moving out, and then that's all going to be encapsulated. But I say this again, if you bring your weapon, please keep in mind that there are a lot of people out there with weapons, and you must exercise some type of responsibility for your actions. We are not protesters. We are not demonstrators. We are an armed militia that believes that there is a credible threat in your city. So we're going to be on a swivel, but we hope to have a peaceful event. Please don't come out there and agitate something that could turn into something very terrible. We don't want that. We're coming in peace. We love the people that we've met so far. LeBron has been fantastic. All of the people we met from the different agencies, even the folks on this call, informative questions, asking the right questions, hand on the pulse. I thank all of you Black media for coming out, because Black media is something that we don't have anymore across the country. We don't have that big Black media presence anymore. Social media is kind of filling in for it. So when I see a gathering like this, I'm happy. I'm happy to talk to you because you won't twist the words. You won't try to take a sound bite and run with it. You'll tell it like it is to the people who need to know exactly how it is. So please come out. It's a historic day. Please bring your cameras. If you want to come take pictures, that's fine. If you want to bring your weapons, carry responsibly. When we move from our staging area to the city hall where we're going to stage up near the park, when that happens, you're more than welcome to flow behind us, but you just cannot approach the formation and you cannot stand in the formation. Those are the only things you need to know. And we look forward to having a great event with you, give you some good information, to give you some transparency into what's happening in your city, and then begin the dialogue of how we begin to work on some of the sore spots that have been indicated to us as we come to your city. Thank you.
LeBron, if you wanted, do you want to add anything else to this? I mean, are you guys giving away the location or anything else like that, or will that just?
Yeah. The location where we're rallying up at is at Baxter Park, right there at 9th and Muhammad Ali. News will be saying some more about it, about the route and everything, but that's where the old Beach Terrace, right where they're doing the construction, where the football teams used to practice, and. Like I said, I mean, I just appreciate Grandmaster Jay for coming, being a part of this situation and coming to Louisville, to try to make a difference. And hopefully, we as entities can, come together as a group and come up with some different initiatives and different ways that, policies to make change. And we have somebody here that's, that's ready to back us up. So all I want to say is that everybody that can just, dispel all the negative myths behind this. The brother's not coming to tear anything up. He's actually coming to help the community, and whatever he can do, he's willing to do. He's not coming to take over anything. He's not coming to, forget you all's initiatives. These are our initiatives. He's here to help us and support us in any initiatives we put forward. So let's just work together and make this thing happen.
One more thing before you leave, Mr. Grandmaster. And this is on a little lighter note, and I absolutely mean no disrespect by this, but there's been some rumors floating around. Does NFAC stand for the Not Fucking Around Coalition?
Absolutely.
Hey.
It reflects our attitude. It reflects our attitude on several levels. And I don't want to be profane here because I respect the ears of some folks that just can't take that. They're a little too sensitive. But our attitude toward everything that's happened to us in this country. We're tired of the excuses. We're tired of the apologies. We're tired of the we'll go back and do better. We're tired of all of that. See, we want to issue some apologies. We want to be able to say, well, we'll go back and do better. We want to be able to say that, we felt threatened. We want an equal playing field. And right now, what's being handed to us is a bunch of bullshit. So we're not fucking around with y'all no more. point blank. Like that's what your mother used to say when she's had enough. So technically, we've had enough.
Appreciate you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining the live today. I appreciate you, Grandmaster Jay. I'm going to stay on for a little bit because I'm going to address the people. I want everybody to know my role and my purpose. I'm just the connector, all right? I just bridge the gap and bring the people together.
That sound like a famous tagline, Oprah.
Thank you, Nicole.
Hey,
yeah, thank you, Grandmaster.
Some people are going to come in and out of the city of Louisville to try to help us. My goal is to bridge the gap.
Last thing, if
organizers and connect them with the media.
Please come up and shake my hand.
Thank you so much, friends on Nicole. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and thank you for everybody that has been on this call. God bless you guys. Good night.
I appreciate everybody, man. And if anybody, if anybody has any questions, reach out to me. My number is 593-6563. If y'all have any questions, man, let's put this thing together and make it work.
Appreciate you, LeBron. It's Brad, man. Appreciate you, man.
Man, I love you, Brad, man. Appreciate you, Muck, everybody, man. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Shay, Jason.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
Speaking on here.
All right, Breonna Taylor. That's what it's all about, baby. Thank you.
All right, y'all.
All right. Bye.
I'll let everybody hang up before I keep going. So if you're watching live, don't go nowhere. I'm staying on. I'm staying on. And if y'all choose to stay on, y'all fine too. I don't really care. I just want to clean up, do some house cleaning, and make sure everybody that is in my live, you know what I mean, know what's going on and what we're doing and what we have been doing. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody has the same information. Okay. So Louisville, if you're not, I haven't seen all of the live, please, when this stops, go back and view it. I want you guys to continue to share this information with all of your media outlets. Last night, we met with over 40 organizers, okay? So I don't want you to think that we're coming into Louisville and we're not meeting with people who have been on the ground. We met with over 40 organizers last night. Today, that the media has had with Grandmaster Jay. They was on the call and able to answer the questions. We are not recruiting for Grandmaster Jay, okay? Nicole Hayden is not recruiting for him. Nicole Hayden goes with peaceful protesting, and that's what they said he was going to do. Now, anybody else can take it upon themselves to participate or not participate or watch from a live. They're more than welcome to do that. Again, my role has always been connecting people. I consider myself a networking guru. And so I hold many hats in the city of Louisville, if you don't already know. So this particular hat in my role, as I mentioned to you several other times on many different lives, I come and I see a problem that needs to be fixed and I maneuver my way. If the people from out of town and the organizations contact me, I can be their resource. I can get the media together. I can get the organizers together. So on the back end of that, from previous organizations coming down here, we are setting together a weekly Zoom meeting with local organizers so that we can all be on the same page. So if I can't share that message to you, we are trying our best to strategically plan and come together and unify. And so, you know, like he said earlier, when we unify, there's going to be a problem. So Louisville, I want you to know that there are people who are out here. We are coming together. We are pulling from the courthouse to the White House. We are doing everything we can do possible to make justice for Breonna Taylor. It's going to take not only Louisville, it is going to take people nationally. This is a global effort, okay? This is a global effort. We're going to need everybody. Everybody do their part, okay? Do their part. If you have any questions, like he said, pertaining to the NFAC, please direct those questions to LeBron, all right? Please direct those questions to LeBron. All right, y'all. Peace. Justice for Breonna Taylor. All right. Bye-bye.